I was hospitalized after my aunt deliberately triggered panic attacks, stole my identity, and destroyed my finances. From falsified debts to strangers' online sending threats, my life became a nightmare. At the most shocking moment, exposing her in front of 200 wedding guests while uncovering betrayals from my closest friends. I was in the ER, heart pounding so violently it felt like it was trying to escape my chest, when the doctor leaned over me and asked if I had been using drugs. I hadn't. What I had was an aunt who had been systematically dismantling my life piece by piece until my body literally couldn't take the stress anymore. That's how I ended up strapped to a hospital bed with wires on my chest, trembling at the thought of a pink eye phone case. It sounds insane, right? But if you've ever watched someone you trusted smile while setting fire to your entire life, you'll understand. This story starts on what was supposed to be a simple vacation. It was late evening, around 9:45 p.m, and my dad Angel and I had just checked into a rental cabin near Lake Superior. We'd planned the trip for weeks of fishing, hiking, and for me, a chance to finally breathe after months of grinding at work. I had just mailed off my $450 car payment earlier that morning, and I was excited to put bills out of my mind for once. I remember pulling out the container for meat cookies my mom had sent with us, their cinnamon chocolate smell filling the cabin. Comfort. Safety. Family. And then Mary showed up. Mary, my dad's younger sister, was 37 and always had this aura. On the surface, she was charismatic, the kind of person who lit up a room with her laugh. But underneath, there was a sharpness, a cruelty she disguised as jokes. I'd been wary of her since I was 12, when she mocked me in front of the whole family for crying over my dog's death. Jerry's too soft for this world, she had laughed, while shoving another cookie in her mouth. That stuck with me. But Dad loved her. Family is family, he always said. So when she texted that she was just passing by and wanted to stop at the cabin, I didn't argue. She breezed in carrying her phone with that obnoxious pink case, smelling faintly of baby powder like she always did. She hugged Dad, gave me a too tight squeeze, and immediately started poking around. Nice place, she said, flipping through the rentals while combined her like she was looking for something. I felt my chest tighten. The first red flag came less than an hour later. I was outside with Dad, unloading fishing gear from the truck, when I realised my wallet wasn't in my bag. I shrugged it off at first, maybe I left it in the car. But when I checked, it was gone. I tore through my backpack, then the cabin. Nothing. That night I brushed it off as forgetfulness. I mean, who wants to accuse family right away? But something in Mary's smile at dinner made my stomach twist. She pushed a plate of cookies toward me and said, "You always did lose things, Jerry. Remember when you dropped your Game Boy in the lake?" Her eyes sparkled with amusement. I barely slept that night. Every creak of the cabin made my pulse race. My wallet didn't show up, and I convinced myself it was just a minor hiccup. I'd cancel my cards when we got home. No big deal. But it was a big deal. The next morning, I got an alert from my bank about suspicious activity. Someone had opened a new credit line in my name and not with my usual bank, but another one across the state. I froze. My fingers went numb holding my phone. My dad noticed and asked, "What's wrong, son?" I tried to keep my voice calm. "It says I opened a new account." I didn't. Mary, sipping coffee at the table, tilted her head. "Weird. Maybe it's identity theft. Happens all the time. You've got to be more careful." The way she said it, casual, dismissive, made my stomach churn. She didn't look worried. If anything, she looked entertained. I wanted to scream at her right then, but Dad shot me a look. "Don't start drama." So I swallowed it. That was the first red flag. The first of many. And it only got darker from there. I wish I could say that was the worst of it, but that night was just the opening act. The red flags started stacking so fast that my chest felt like it was in a permanent vice. By the third day of vacation, my credit alerts were going off non-stop. New cards. New loans. A $1,200 furniture order in my name from a store in Minneapolis. My pulse would spike every time my phone buzzed. I started snapping at my dad without meaning to. "I can't even breathe, Dad. I don't know how this is happening." Mary just smirked, swirling her coffee in slow circles like she was watching a TV show instead of my life collapsing. "Jerry, you're overreacting. People make mistakes. Maybe you gave your social security number to the wrong person." Her words crawled under my skin because I knew she was lying. I hadn't given my number to anyone. The only new factor in my life was Mary showing up with that pink eye for in case she never let out of her sight. One night, late evening around 11:15 p.m, I woke up drenched in sweat from a nightmare. In it, I was 12 years old again, standing in our old backyard. Back then, I'd found out Mary had stolen my birthday money of $40 from my grandma, which she'd used to buy herself nail polish. I'd confronted her, voice shaking, and she laughed right in my face. "You don't deserve it anyway. You're too weak to even keep your own stuff safe." The nightmare replayed that moment, except instead of birthday money, it was my whole identity slipping through her fingers. I woke up gasping, feeling 12 and 30 at the same time, my body shaking uncontrollably. I started noticing little things, like how Mary seemed to know details about me she shouldn't. One morning, she casually mentioned, "How's your car loan going? Still paying that $450 every month?" My jaw dropped. I had never told her about that number. Not once. I caught her snooping through my backpack when she thought I was asleep. I'd left the zipper slightly open, and when I woke up, it was pulled wide, paper shuffled. She just shrugged when I asked. "Relax, I was looking for gum." The paranoia started eating me alive. I couldn't focus on the trip. I started snapping at Dad. "Why do you always defend her? You don't see what she's doing to me." He'd rub his forehead and sigh. "Jerry, you need to calm down. You're stressing yourself sick." I didn't feel sick. I felt hunted. Then came a moment that made me realize I wasn't imagining things. Our neighbor back home, Mr. Kent, called me out of the blue. He sounded uncomfortable. "Jerry, I didn't know what else to do, but your aunt offered me money. She wanted me to, keep an eye on your place while you were gone, like, spy through your windows. She said it was for your safety." I nearly dropped my phone. My voice cracked. She paid you to watch me. Yeah, I didn't feel right about it, so I'm telling you now, but she was serious, cash on the table. My stomach flipped. I wanted to puke. This wasn't just family drama anymore, this was surveillance. Her narrative transformed into certainty. She was deliberately orchestrating chaos. When I confronted her, she didn't even deny it. She just smiled that sharp smile, brushing cookie crumbs off her sweater. "You're so dramatic. You think you're that interesting. Please, nobody cares enough to watch you." Her words cut deeper than if she'd admitted everything. Stress was destroying me. I stopped eating, except maybe 1 or 2 cookies when Dad pushed them on me. The smell of baby powder, her constant perfume, made me nauseous. Every time it wafted past, I felt my throat tighten, panic pressing in. I tried calling the bank, the credit bureau, anyone who could help. But each time, the damage had already been done. Accounts opened. Loans approved. My name tainted. I started getting calls from debt collectors about balances I didn't even know existed. "Sir, you owe $23.50. Can you make a payment today?" I'd shake trying to explain. "That's not me. That's not my debt." But to them, it was me. I noticed the way strangers looked at me, even on a vacation. The cabin rental host came by to fix the heater and gave me this judgmental glance, like she knew something. Later, I found out Mary had told her I was unreliable with money and probably wouldn't pay. She was poisoning my reputation with anyone who would listen. And the cruelest part? My dad didn't believe me. He thought I was paranoid, maybe even unstable. "Jerry," he said one night, "I think you need to talk to someone, maybe therapy. You're seeing monsters where there aren't any." But the monster was sitting right there, smirking behind her pink iPhone case, pretending she was family. The second red flag wasn't even a flag, it was a damn billboard flashing in my face. I wasn't just losing money. I was losing trust. And soon, I'd lose everything else. It hit me like a brick on the third night of our vacation. I was sitting on the cabin deck, staring at the dark lake and trying to breathe through the panic that had become my constant companion. Therapy had taught me grounding techniques, counting breaths, pressing my hands against rough surfaces, but nothing worked against what Mary had orchestrated. My phone buzzed again, another alert. This time, it wasn't just a new account or a loan. It was a formal notice. Someone had filed a falsified tax return in my name, and the IRS wanted $7,450. My heart sank, my chest constricted, and I felt the familiar nausea of a panic attack crawling up my throat. That's when it finally clicked. Mary wasn't just careless or manipulative. She had stolen my identity. Every loan, every card, every debt, she had weaponized it to terrorize me. My stomach turned at the thought that I'd been living with this intruder for years, under the same roof, smiling while dismantling my life piece by piece. I ran inside, grabbed Dad, and showed him the lures. His face went pale, and for the first time that trip, I saw worry there. But it didn't last. Mary's laugh drifted from the kitchen. "Oh, Jerry, you're really overreacting. The IRS, come on, chill." She was stirring tea, the faint smell of baby powder clinging to her scarf. But Dad had finally noticed. "This is serious, Mary. Stop hiding behind jokes. Look at what you've done to him." She smirked. "Oh, don't be dramatic. I wouldn't harm him. That's ridiculous." I realized then that no one was truly safe from her manipulations. That evening, I reached out to a former coworker, a whistleblower named Tanner, who had quietly noticed Mary forging emails at my old job. She hesitated at first, afraid of legal repercussions, but eventually sent me screenshots proving Mary had been using my identity online for months, opening accounts, applying for loans, and even creating fake social media profiles to send threatening messages to myself. My world tilted. Strangers were calling me names, threatening me, and sharing screenshots online, all orchestrated by someone I called family. My reputation, once solid at work, in the community, even among friends, was now riddled with whispers and assumptions. People avoided me. Some friends blocked me, others sent subtle digs. And through it all, Mary smiled, watching me unravel. It was more than just financial destruction. My sleep was shattered. I had nightmares every night, sometimes back to when I was 12, when she had mocked my grief over my childhood dog. Panic attacks hit me at random in restaurants, while driving, even when trying to go for a jog. Therapy sessions became my lifeline, but even therapists admitted this was complex PTSD from prolonged psychological abuse. My thinking had been rewired. I questioned every interaction. Every smile felt like a trap. Every hug was suspect. Then came the secondary betrayal. The neighbour, Mr. Kent, had confirmed he wasn't the only one spying. Mary had recruited multiple people over the years, some even from inside my own social circles, to report my routines, finances, and moves back to her. I felt completely cornered, watched at all times. The only comfort came from Tanner's emails, evidence that someone finally saw the truth. By the 5th day, I had compiled documents, screenshots, and witness statements. My dad and I sat in the cabin living room, surrounded by papers. "I don't even know where to start," I muttered. "It's everywhere she touched, it's ruined." Dad shook his head slowly. "We'll fix this, son, step by step." But God, I didn't see it coming. She was always clever. It wasn't just cleverness. It was malevolence. That night, I had a vivid nightmare. I was in a courtroom, Mary sitting calmly in the defendant's chair, while I sat chained to a desk, unable to speak, unable to stop the world from thinking I was a fraud. When I woke up, my body was drenched in sweat, shaking uncontrollably. My phone chimed with yet another notification. A stranger had posted my full name, claiming I was a credit scammer. I realized then that the horror was total. My identity had been stolen, my finances destroyed, and my mental health sabotaged. I was publicly shamed, isolated, and terrorized by someone who smiled while doing it. And through all of it, the community, co-workers, and even strangers had either judged me or ignored my pleas. But there was one glimmer of hope: Tanya's evidence. Someone was finally willing to step forward. That's when I made the decision. I couldn't stay silent any longer. I needed to confront Mary, to expose her, and to reclaim my life, no matter how dangerous it might be. I didn't know it yet, but this confrontation would lead to the most explosive moment of my life, one that would bring legal battles, public humiliation, and a shocking twist I would never forget. By the end of this discovery phase, I realized Mary had not just attacked me financially, socially, and emotionally. She had attempted to erase me entirely: my identity, my reputation, even my sense of safety. And yet, deep down, a small spark of resolve had begun to grow. I was terrified. I was broken. But for the first time, I knew I wouldn't let her win. The day of the confrontation started like any other wedding. But it wasn't my wedding, it was Mary's. And not just any wedding. I had learned through Tanya's whistleblower leaks that she had been living a double, triple, even quadruple life. My spouse, unbeknownst to me, had been secretly married to 3 other people simultaneously. My home, my sanity, my identity, everything had been collateral damage while she built this elaborate web of lies. It was July 14th, 2023, 4:30 p.m. in a lavish ballroom at the Oakwood Country Club, with 200 guests seated, champagne flutes glinting in the afternoon sun. I remember the smell of fresh flowers mixing with the faint whiff of baby powder, the same scent that haunted my nightmares. I walked in clutching my phone, a folder of documents in hand, trembling but determined. I spotted Mary at the altar, radiant, smiling, her pink iPhone case peeking out from the clutch in her hand. She looked at me, and that smile, the one that had haunted me for years, widened. I felt the surge of fury, adrenaline replacing my panic. This ends now. I stepped forward and grabbed the microphone. The crowd's chatter hushed instantly. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, voice shaking but growing steadier with every word, you all know Mary as the bride today, but she's not just anyone. She's been living multiple lives, committing fraud, and destroying people's lives, including mine. Gasps echoed through the hall. Mary's smile faltered slightly. I have proof, I continued, waving my phone and holding up the folder. Credit card applications, falsified debts, tax fraud, even threatening messages sent to me, all orchestrated by her, and not just to me. She has been lying to everyone here, married to 3 other people at the same time, and all of this while smiling at me, destroying my life. A hush fell. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Mary's father's face turned red. She tried to laugh it off. "Jerry, stop embarrassing yourself. You don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, I know exactly what I'm talking about," I said. My hands were shaking, but I kept going. And here's the kicker: she paid people, even neighbors, to spy on me. She falsified my identity, ruined my finances, and made me question my own sanity, and she smiled while doing it. Whispers erupted into shocked murmurs. I saw a few of her friends, and the crowd glanced at each other, suddenly looking guilty. Then Tanya stepped forward, her phone out, confirming screenshots of emails and messages. "I can back up everything he's saying. This is all true." Mary's composure cracked. You can't." "Watch me," I interrupted, feeling a mix of rage and liberation. Her face strained of colour as people started murmuring, pulling out phones, calling their lawyers. Panic spread across the ballroom. Mary dropped her clutch and her pink iPhone case skidded across the marble floor. She bolted at the side door, heels clattering against the tiles. People gasped. Deaths whispered. Some laughed, some recorded. Lawyers arrived within minutes, shuffling papers and demanding statements. I felt the tension in the room, the public shaming that had been looming over me for years finally reversing direction. But the plot twist came seconds later. I got a text from a close friend, the one I thought I could trust. "Jerry, it wasn't just Mary. We helped her. Sorry." My stomach sank. The betrayal was more profound than I could have imagined. People I trusted most were part of this. My mind raced, every whisper, every social isolation, every threat I had faced online, some of it had come from people I considered allies. And yet, standing there, exposed in front of 200 guests, I felt a strange clarity. Mary had fled, her empire of lies crumbling. People who had doubted me now looked at me differently. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like the victim. The lawyers demanded statements, and I handed over my evidence. The chaos was total, but finally, I could breathe. The public humiliation I had endured was turning into vindication. Mary had smiled while destroying everything I cared about, but this time, the smile was gone, replaced by a flight of desperation. I remember looking at my dad, who had tears in his eyes, and saying, "It's over, I survived." He nodded, gripping my shoulder. "You did, and we're going to fix everything else too." That evening, I walked outside, watching the sun dip behind the horizon, the lake mirroring the fiery sky. For the first time in years, I felt a flicker of peace. The betrayal was enormous, the trauma real, but I had exposed the truth. I had taken my power back, even if the journey to rebuild was just beginning. Mary had lost, but the war was far from over. I had to survive the aftermath of the debts, the broken relationships, the public perception. But at that moment, standing in the July twilight, I felt the first spark of hope. I was not powerless. I had survived the darkest storm of my life. The aftermath hit me like a freight train. Even after exposing Mary at her wedding, the fallout was relentless. I lost my home shortly after the rental mortgage was tied to accounts she had forged in my name. Predators were calling constantly, strangers online continued to send threats, convinced I was a fraudster. One person even posted my address with a caption warning I didn't trust him with money. Panic gripped me every time I stepped outside. I remember sitting on the curb of my empty driveway on August 2nd, 2023, phone buzzing non-stop. The smell of baby powder lingered faintly from the last confrontation with Mary in my mind. I held the folder of documents tightly, the edges cutting into my palms. How did it come to this? I whispered to no one. My father tried to console me. We'll figure it out, Jerry, we will. But even his words couldn't anchor me. Sleep was non-existent. Nightmares weren't just dreams anymore, they were full-blown replays of her smiling as she destroyed me. I'd wake up screaming at 3:17 a.m., sometimes drenched in sweat, sometimes gripping my chest in fear. Panic attacks became hourly visitors, my hands shaking, my lungs burning, feeling like my heart might fail. Complex PTSD had rewritten my mind. Trust felt impossible. I could barely talk to anyone without suspecting ulterior motives. Therapy sessions were both my lifeline and my battlefield. Dr. Kim, my psychiatrist, patiently guided me through exposure therapy and endo sessions. Your brain is processing trauma, Jerry, she'd say, eyes gentle. It's not weakness, you survived extreme manipulation, that takes strength. I nodded through tears, feeling both hopeless and determined. Sessions involved recounting every betrayal, every manipulation, even the neighbour spying. Each time, I thought my mind would break. But slowly, the narrative changed. I was no longer just the victim, I was a survivor piecing together the truth. Socially, I was fractured. Friends who hadn't betrayed me kept their distance, uncertain of how to engage. At work, whispers followed me down the hallways. Emails that had been friendly became cold and clipped. Even simple errands felt like I was walking in judgment. Once, at a grocery store, a stranger muttered, "Watch out. Don't trust him," as I reached for a jar of peanut butter. My reputation had been weaponized, and there was no easy way to repair it. Financially, I was in free fall. Every account Mary had touched needed to be contested. Collections agencies handed me, demanding payments for debts I hadn't accrued. My credit score was devastated. The $450 car payment I had been managing so carefully suddenly felt like a lifeline I might lose. Nights were spent on hold, documenting everything, filling dispute forms, and praying the next letter wasn't another shock. Even Dad wasn't immune to stress. He'd sit next to me late at night, rubbing his temples. "I can't believe she did all this, and some people, we trusted Jerry. I'm so sorry." I wanted to scream in frustration, anger, grief, helplessness, all jumbled together. My closest friends weren't trustworthy, strangers hated me, and my family structure felt like shattered glass. It got worse when Mary's accomplices came forward, claiming they'd just been helping her, trying to deflect legal responsibility. Every revelation was another slap to the gut. Even Tanya, my whistleblower ally, warned me, "Jerry, this isn't over. People are scared, but some might try to twist it against you." The low point came one night in late August. I had locked myself in a cheap motel room after a day of court hearings. I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of every betrayal. The faint smell of baby powder, somehow lingering from memories, made me nauseous. I cried, trembling, unable to control my shaking hands. Panic and despair enveloped me. I felt utterly, completely alone. But in that darkest hour, I promised myself I would survive this. I might have hit rock bottom, but I wasn't going to stay there. Therapy sessions became rituals of reclaiming power. I meticulously documented every detail of bank statements, emails, messages to rebuild my identity piece by piece. I started setting small goals, phone calls to creditors, filing police reports, even small walks outside without fear. Rock bottom had stripped everything from me: home, reputation, trust, financial security. Yet, it also became the crucible where my resolve forged itself. Every tremor of panic was met with a conscious act of courage. Every memory of betrayal became evidence, a reminder that I could rise again. Recovery didn't happen overnight. It was a series of small victories that gradually built into something larger. Therapy remained my anchor. Endo sessions, talk therapy, and weekly check-ins with Dr. Kim became the scaffolding for my mental health. I learned to identify triggers, the smell of baby powder, the flash of a pink iPhone case, even certain times late at night that used to signal panic. Each trigger I faced and survived strengthened me. I began rebuilding my finances from scratch. Each phone call to a creditor, every dispute with the bank, was exhausting, but with documentation from Tanya and legal support, I slowly regained control. The $450 car payment that once felt like a lifeline became a symbol of persistence. I even started teaching myself about credit repair, budgeting, and identity protection. Every corrected account felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Travel became my therapy. I started small, with short trips to places I'd always wanted to see but had averted out of fear. By October, I was on a plane to Spain, wandering the streets of Barcelona. The first time I sipped coffee at a street cafe and watched the city move around me, I felt a flicker of freedom I hadn't known in years. I journaled every day, documenting both trauma and triumph, processing experiences rather than suppressing them. It was in those travels that I realized the depth of my resilience. I hiked through the Pyrenees, climbed Machu Picchu in Peru, and wandered the floating streets of Venice. With each adventure, I felt my confidence returning. I was no longer defined by Mary's betrayal, or by the neighbours who had spied on me, or by the friends who had turned their backs. I was defined by my ability to survive, adapt, and reclaim joy. Along the way, I met people who reminded me of what trust and kindness felt like. Strangers offered help without agenda. Fellow travellers shared meals and stories, and therapists back home provided virtual guidance that kept me grounded. I even reconnected with a few old friends who had waited patiently for me to be ready. Slowly, I built a new community, one that respected boundaries and celebrated honesty. I also became an advocate for identity theft victims. Sharing my story online and in workshops, I realized that my experience, as devastating as it was, could help others avoid similar fates. For the first time, the public whispers and threats that had tormented me transformed into something empowering. I was turning trauma into education, fear into action. On March 2024, I had fully regained my independence. My name was cleared, debts resolved, and legal consequences for Mary were underway. I no longer flinched at late-night notifications or panic at the thought of strangers judging me. The complex PTSD didn't disappear completely, but it became manageable. I had learned coping mechanisms, self-awareness, and the hard truth that surviving doesn't mean returning to who you were, it means becoming stronger than you thought possible. The culmination of my journey came during a solo trip to Japan. Standing under cherry blossoms, watching petals fall gently around me, I realized I had discovered an inner strength I didn't know existed. I could trust again, live fully, and even smile without fear. I had traveled the world, faced the darkest betrayals imaginable, and emerged empowered. Even now, when I recall Mary's smile while destroying my life, I feel a shiver, but it is tempered by the knowledge that she no longer has power over me. I carry the scars, but they are proof that I endured, that I fought, and that I reclaimed my identity. The stolen years, the ruined finances, the public shaming, they shaped me, but they did not define me. I am Jerry, survivor of deception and psychological warfare. I am someone who faced panic, nightmares, betrayal, and social isolation and rebuilt everything, piece by piece. Traveling the world, reconnecting with my sense of self, and helping others reclaim their identities has become my life's purpose. I found freedom in motion, courage in confrontation, and power in survival. Looking back, I see a journey marked by horror and chaos, yes, but also triumph, resilience, and rebirth. And for the first time in a long time, I feel truly